Listen, years ago, I knew this storage specialist in the IT industry, and he was genuinely good at his craft. I mean, the real deal. He knew absolutely everything there was to know about storage arrays, RAID levels, complex replication mechanisms, all the little sizing nuances, performance optimizations. He had a list of certifications that would literally tire your eyes out just reading them. Well, one day, we visited a large customer together for a really critical sizing meeting. Everything was going perfectly. The pitch was solid. Then, the customer's systems administrator chimed in and asked a question. He said, when we connect this storage to our existing Cisco fabric, should we go over FCOE or prefer native FC? And how does ISL trunking get affected on our switches? I still remember the exact look on his face. He knew storage, he knew SAN switches, but he just did not know networking deeply enough to answer that combined question. He froze, he gave this kind of fragmented, partial answer, and we basically had to leave the meeting unfinished.
Welcome to episode 2 of the Diabolikss pre-sales series. That day in the meeting, I realized a really hard truth about our industry. Even the absolute best specialist is going to hit a brick wall in their pre-sales career if they only stay specialized in one single area. So this explainer is about that exact limit. We are going to look at the real technical foundation you actually need to do this role well, and we are going to explore that critical, delicate balance between technical depth and technical breadth.
Now, to figure out how to build your skills, we really need to talk about a concept called the T-shape. And this isn't just some random buzzword we made up in IT. It actually has a pretty rich history. Back in the 1980s, McKinsey & Company adopted this concept for their consultant typology. Then in 1991, a British consultant named David Guest wrote an article in The Independent proposing this exact model to figure out what type of worker is actually the most valuable. Fast forward to 2010, and IDEO CEO Tim Brown brought the concept into design teams to really push innovation. Today, I can confidently tell you this is the absolute most fitting model for a pre-sales or solution architect role.
Just picture the actual anatomy of the letter T. The vertical bar represents your deep expertise. This is the one specific area where you are a true, undeniable authority. Then you have the horizontal bar across the top. That represents your functional, cross-domain breadth. This is your ability to understand and collaborate across a bunch of different systems and disciplines. You need both of these bars to survive in modern IT.
When you are out in the field, you generally run into 3 types of IT professionals. First, you have the I-shaped person. This is your pure, siloed expert. They have incredible depth, but they are totally isolated. They are highly valued as an expert, sure, but they cannot consult on a full end-to-end solution. Then you have the dash-shaped person. This is your shallow generalist. They know a little bit about everything, but they lack the real authority to design anything complex. And finally, you have the T-shaped professional. This is the pre-sales ideal. Deep in one area and functionally collaborative across all the rest.
So you absolutely have to build that vertical bar first. In pre-sales, deepening your knowledge in one area is not just a preference, it is a strict requirement. If you aren't deep in anything, the customer is just going to see you as someone who spent a few hours reading up on the internet. Let's look at the main areas you can choose for your depth. First is storage. This covers your SAN, NAS, all-flash, hybrid arrays, replication, and deduplication. And let me be very clear here, mastering just one single vendor, like IBM Flash System for instance, is not enough to claim true depth. You need to understand the underlying logic of multiple vendors and be able to confidently defend the architectural differences between them.
Or maybe compute is your primary domain. If so, you are dealing with x86 servers, RISC architectures, and of course modern AI infrastructure and GPU servers. Deepening your skills here means you can clearly see both the commercial and the technical differences between hardware from HPE, Dell, Lenovo, and Huawei. You really must know server selection criteria and those complex firmware ecosystems inside and out. Then we have the networking side. This includes routing, switching, firewalls, load balancers, SDN, and core VLAN design. I'll tell you from experience, this is an incredibly deep area. Reaching something like a Cisco CCIE level of understanding here requires a decade of strict, unwavering discipline. You simply do not get there by taking shortcuts.
In the virtualization space, having true depth means knowing a hypervisor down to its disassembled components. You need to understand exactly how it interacts with the underlying bare metal. It is all about managing resources across VMware vSphere, Hyper-V, KVM, or even those hyper-converged platforms like Nutanix or vSAN.
Another really critical area you could own is backup and disaster recovery. This is where you master platforms like Veeam, Commvault, and Rubrik. But it is more than just software. It is about rigorous RPO and RTO planning. It is designing immutable backups, architecting ransomware protection, and mapping out full DR site replication topologies.
Then, of course, there is the cloud domain. This encompasses AWS, Azure, GCP, and complex hybrid cloud architectures. Deepening here is not just about logging into a portal and spinning up virtual machines. It requires mastering landing zone design, understanding cloud migration methodologies, and getting into the intricate, sometimes messy details of cloud economics and FinOps. And finally, we wrap up the deepening areas with security. This covers endpoint protection, network security, zero trust architecture, and identity management. It also requires a really strong grasp of regulatory frameworks, whether it is local market regulations like KVKK or broader ones like GDPR and ISO 27001. You will need to choose one of these 7 areas to build your vertical bar.
But having that vertical depth, that is honestly only half the battle. Years ago, back in my mid-level period, I was pitching a storage solution alongside a brilliant network colleague. We were doing great, until the IT director asked this exact question. He said, if we do snapshot replication on this storage, how will replication traffic affect other traffic on our fabric? And will the new storage grow our backup window? Well, I stopped cold. This was a 4 million IOPS replication topology problem. It completely combined storage, network, and backup all at once. My colleague stopped too, because he only knew networking. We actually had to ask for 2 days to evaluate it. Sure, we gave a great answer later, but right there in the room, we looked like isolated specialists, not trusted consultants. The horizontal bar of our T was entirely missing.
And this brings us to the absolute most important concept in this explainer, the junction point. This is the exact spot where your deep vertical expertise meets your horizontal breadth. At this junction point, real, undeniable pre-sales value is created. Your storage expertise alone does not produce value. Your real value lies in predicting network performance impacts, calculating the effects on the virtualization layer, and seeing the impact on the backup window before it happens. Asking the right questions at this junction shifts your role entirely. You go from doing simple engineering to trusted, high-level consulting.
Let's map this to what we are seeing in the local market and globally today. Before 2010, IT was mostly on-premises. It was simpler. Today, that horizontal bar has to stretch so much further to cover a 3-layered hybrid reality. You have to understand on-premises infrastructure for core production. You absolutely must understand public cloud architectures for migrated workloads and cloud-native services. And you have to understand edge and hybrid deployments for branch offices and IoT points. The breadth required in this role has grown from maybe 5 or 6 areas to 8 or 10.
Okay, so how do you actually build this T-shape over your career? There is a very clear evolution strategy here. If you are a junior, your T is not really formed yet. Your only job right now is to deepen that vertical bar. Find your area, learn the absolute fundamentals, and get those entry-level vendor certifications. If you are mid-level, your vertical should be solid. So now is the time to grow the horizontal bar. Learn adjacent areas, pick up some secondary vendor certifications, and figure out what questions to ask across different domains. Finally, as a senior, your job changes completely. Your T is fully drawn. Now your responsibility is to supervise your team's T-shapes. You need to look at your engineers and identify who is missing networking knowledge or who needs to really deepen their storage skills. Your focus becomes the overall capability of the entire team.
I want to challenge you right now with a very practical exercise. Grab a blank piece of paper, draw a vertical line right down the middle, and write down your primary area of depth. List your certifications and your major projects there. Then, draw a horizontal bar across the top. Write down the adjacent areas: network, virtualization, backup, cloud, security. Next to each one of those, honestly assess your working knowledge. This map is your career architecture. Look at it and ask yourself, how much did the horizontal bar of your T grow this week? And what area are you actually regressing in?
In this industry, staying static literally means you are moving backwards. You must constantly update your T-shape to remain relevant and valuable to your customers. Next time on The Explainer, we are going to dive straight into the certification path. We will look at exactly which certifications to take and when, what those vendor certifications really do for you in the field, and how to separate simply collecting badges from building real, undeniable technical competence. Until then, take a hard look at the map you just drew. If a customer asked you a cross-domain question right now, would you have the breadth to answer it, or would you freeze? Keep expanding that horizontal bar.